So just what is it that defines our winner? How do you end up on the right side of the split second to win the great race? It very often comes down to a defining element, this, fuel. The United E85 that they use in these cars very often defines precisely how this race works. So let's look at our fuel basics. It's United E85. It's 85% ethanol and uses Australian sugarcane, 15% premium unleaded. You're going to use around about 4.6 litres per lap around this track. That gives you a range of about 20 to 23 laps out of a tank of 110 usable litres of fuel, therefore stopping a minimum of 7 times with a refuel rate of about 3.75 litres per second. And what really matters is the last 3 stints of the race. This is where the big strategy game starts to be played. Third last stint, you want to get yourself in track position. It becomes vital. Second last stint, you really need to be in those top 3 or 4 cars. And in the last stint of the race, it's about playing to the microsecond. Remember that 7 of the last 10 races here have been won by 1 second or less.
David Reynolds, a whisker away from victory.
So how do you make that margin? It comes down to managing fuel. How rich or lean do you run the car? And how do you save fuel? How do you manage the United E85?
Huge question marks over the fuel in this car that leads.
You're not going to finish if you don't conserve maximum. We're talking maximum.
This is 4.6 litres in the beaker. It represents the amount of fuel burnt per lap. This is 3.75 litres. This represents the refuel rate per second going into the car during the stop. And this is 170 mil. The equation is actually pretty simple, but it's very hard to achieve. If you can save fuel, spend less time sitting still in this pit lane, you can win this race by a tiny margin. This represents 1 second. So you've got to try and save this. How do you do it? Well, you need to save this much per lap, 170 mil. This is what it's all about, managing the United E85 to the end of the race. Get it right and you win the greatest race.
Well, that's a very comprehensive summary of how you win the great race